sun rose over Asakor village like a torch held to the sky, lighting the thatched roofs with warm gold. Morning drums echoed from the central square as women prepared cassava, children fetched water, and hunters returned from the forest with their dawn catches. Life in Asakor was woven with rhythm. Even the palm trees seemed to sway to the beat. Among all the drummers, none shone brighter than young Kweku, a boy of 17 whose hands moved so quickly people said the spirits guided them. He was known for turning ordinary rhythms into something magical, something alive. Kweku's pride came as naturally as his talent. He walked through the village with shoulders lifted high, believing he was already destined for greatness. Elders often smiled at him with mixed amusement and concern, noticing how he no longer listened when advice was offered. Still, everyone awaited the annual harvest festival, where Kweku would compete with the best drummers in all the neighboring villages. It was said that the winner would be blessed by the ancestors themselves. Kweku believed that blessing already belonged to him. The harvest festival arrived with explosions of color, kente cloths, bead necklaces, painted faces, and calabashes brimming with palm wine. Dancing feet stamped the ground, raising dust clouds that sparkled in the sun. Drummers from far and wide gathered with their cherished instruments, carved djembes, talking drums, and long ceremonial drums adorned with cowrie shells. At the center of the gathering, Kweku stood tall, his sacred drum slung proudly over his shoulder. It was an heirloom passed down from his grandfather, believed to carry ancestral power. When Kweku stepped forward to perform, silence swept over the festival grounds. His first strike sent a trembling vibration through the crowd, deep, powerful, commanding. His hands moved like lightning, weaving rhythms so intricate they felt like stories told without words. People shouted, danced, and clapped until the earth itself seemed to shake. When the judges announced him the winner, cheers erupted. Kweku lifted his drum high, beaming with pride so bright it overshadowed everything else. In that moment, he believed he was invincible. All evening, villagers celebrated Kweku's victory. Children followed him like a parade, chanting his name while he strutted along the village paths. Some elders approached to congratulate him, but he barely stopped to listen. Instead, he spoke of how no drummer could match his skill, how he was certain to become the greatest in all of West Africa. His words grew bold, and his humility shrank like a shadow at sunset. Several elders exchanged worried glances, knowing that a heart swollen with pride could not beat in rhythm with wisdom. Kweku's mother watched quietly from her hut doorway. She loved her son deeply, but she sensed the shift in him. "Remember," she whispered as he passed, "a drum that speaks too loudly may crack." The Kweku brushed off her proverb, laughing as though nothing could touch him. That night, he placed his sacred drum by his bed and drifted into dreams of fame, unaware that dawn would bring a lesson he would never forget. The next morning, Kweku rose early. He wanted to rehearse before the entire village awoke. He imagined people gathering again to watch him. He positioned himself beneath the ancient baobab tree, took a proud breath, and struck his drum. Nothing happened. No sound, no vibration, not even a dull thud. Confused, he hit it again, harder this time. Still silence. Only the birds overhead offered a response, their chirping sounding like mockery. Kweku frowned and inspected the drum, but it showed no cracks, no loosened ropes, no damage at all. Panic crept into his chest as he hit the drum repeatedly, but the silence remained. This drum had never failed, never. He rushed into the village square, hitting it for anyone willing to listen, yet it remained mute. People stared in shock. Some whispered, others shook their heads. Pride had led Kweku to believe he was untouchable, but the silent drum felt like a judgment he could not escape. For the first time since winning, shame washed over him. Something was terribly wrong, and he didn't know how to fix it. By mid-morning, the silent drum had become the talk of Asakor. Women at the well exchanged whispers about curses. Hunters on the forest path wondered if the ancestors were displeased. Elders gathered beneath the council tree, murmuring that the spirits often withdrew their gifts from those who forgot the meaning of humility. Kweku approached them, breathless with worry. "Please," he pleaded, "tell me what has happened to my drum." The eldest of the council, Nana Bodhi, stroked his gray beard and looked at Kweku with eyes that had seen many seasons. "Your drum has not lost its voice," he said calmly. "You have simply lost the ear to hear its truth." Kweku frowned, not understanding. Nana Bodhi continued, "There is one man who can help you, old Kojo the blind drummer. He sees what others do not. Seek him." The elders then dismissed him gently. Kweku felt a mix of fear and determination rising within him. If Kojo held the answer, then that was where he must go. Old Kojo lived beyond the village, near the edge of the forest where the wind carried strange music through the trees. Many feared visiting him, claiming he communicated with spirits. Kweku, desperate and humbled by shame, made the journey anyway. When he reached the old man's hut, he found Kojo sitting calmly on a wooden stool, hands resting on a battered drum. Though blind, his face held an expression of deep knowing. "You have come," Kojo said before Kweku spoke a word. His voice was soft yet powerful, like an aged drum with a million stories inside it. Kweku knelt and explained everything: the festival, the pride, the silent drum. Kojo listened without interruption, tapping the ground lightly with his fingers as though feeling the vibrations of Kweku's heart. Finally, he said, "A drum does not speak to hands that beat with arrogance. It speaks only to a humble spirit." His words cut deeper than any physical blow. Kojo gestured for Kweku to follow him inside, where the real lesson would begin. Inside Kojo's hut, herbs hung from the ceiling and clay pots lined the walls. The air smelled of earth and old wisdom. Kojo invited Kweku to sit. "Your drum is silent because your heart is loud," the old man said. "You have filled it with pride until there is no space left for the ancestors to whisper their rhythms." Kweku lowered his head, realizing how far he had drifted from humility. Kojo placed a hand on the young drummer's shoulder. "To restore your drum's voice, you must restore your own." Kojo assigned Kweku his first task: help him gather water from the river. Kweku thought the task beneath him. He was a Saku's champion drummer, yet he obeyed. As they walked, Kojo spoke of how the greatest drummers were servants first, artists second. Kweku felt something shift inside him. Carrying the heavy water calabash back to the hut, he realized he had not done honest work in many moons. It humbled him deeply. Over the next days, Kojo gave Kweku tasks that tested his patience and character. He swept the forest path so travelers would walk safely. He chopped firewood for elders too weak to do it themselves. He cleaned Kojo's hut, tended to his small farm, and fetched herbs for healing. At first, frustration burned in him, but each act softened something inside his heart, like beating dust out of a cloth until the true pattern reappeared. Kojo watched with quiet satisfaction. "Humility is not weakness," he told Kweku. "It is strength under control. A river does not boast, yet it shapes the land." For the first time, Kweku began to understand. His hands became less eager for applause and more eager for service. The villagers who saw him carrying loads or helping the elderly were surprised, but pleased. Their whispers changed. Perhaps the spirits are teaching him. When Kojo believed Kweku's heart was ready, he sent him back to Asakor, but not to his drum. Instead, Kweku was to serve the community in silence. For the next several days, he helped wherever he could. He carried market goods for women, gathered firewood for widows, fetched water for the sick, and helped repair cracked mud walls. He did these things quietly, without announcing his presence or reminding anyone that he was the champion drummer. Slowly, the villagers began to see a change in him. Children who once feared his arrogance now approached him eagerly. Elders blessed him with warm smiles, seeing humility where pride once stood. Kweku felt lighter than he ever had after winning any festival. His hands, once obsessed with performance, now found joy in lifting burdens from others. And without realizing it, his heart began to beat in rhythm with the village again. One afternoon, Kweku sat under the baobab tree when a group of children approached him, pleading for him to teach them basic drumming patterns. At first, he hesitated, ashamed that his own drum remained silent. But then he remembered Kojo's lessons. Kindness must be given, even when one feels undeserving. He borrowed a small drum from a neighbor and began teaching the children the simple heartbeat rhythm. As they played, the children laughed, made mistakes, and improved quickly. Teaching them brought Kweku unexpected joy. He realized that passing on knowledge was far more satisfying than hoarding talent. The children admired not just his skill, but his patience and gentleness. For the first time, Kweku felt what Kojo meant by a humble heart. It wasn't about being less than others. It was about lifting others up. One evening during the Harmattan season, 3 weary travelers arrived in Asako. They were hungry, dusty, and had nowhere to sleep. Most villagers were indoors preparing for the cold winds. Kweku noticed the strangers shivering near the square and approached them. Without hesitation, he invited them to share his evening meal, simple yam porridge and dried fish. They gratefully accepted, their faces softening with relief. After eating, Kweku offered them a place to sleep in his mother's outdoor kitchen. The next morning, the travelers thanked him and left blessings of safe journeys and prosperity. Kweku felt warmth in his chest, not from praise, but from knowing he had helped someone without expecting anything in return. His mother watched him proudly, whispering, "Now you walk with the rhythm of kindness." Word of Kweku's transformation reached the elders, who decided to test his sincerity. They called him to the council tree and asked him to help repaint the community shrine, a task requiring patience, respect, and attention to tradition. In the past, Kweku might have refused, believing such tasks were beneath him, but now he nodded humbly and set to work without hesitation. He spent the entire day repainting sacred symbols, washing the stone altar, and trimming the overgrown grass around the shrine. The elders watched him silently, noting the calm focus in his movements. When he finished, Nana Bodhi spoke softly. "You have honored the ancestors with your humility. Your hands are becoming worthy again." Kweku bowed deeply, grateful for their trust. That night he prayed that his heart would continue to grow in wisdom. Kweku returned to Kojo, expecting praise. Instead, the old drummer handed him a calabash filled with water and asked him to walk across the village without spilling a drop. Confused, Kweku tried and failed several times. He returned to Kojo frustrated and out of breath. Kojo smiled gently. When your mind is full of distractions, pride, fear, impatience, you cannot walk steadily. A drummer must keep rhythm inside his heart before he can share it. Kojo then instructed him to walk again, but this time to breathe slowly, focus deeply, and move with intention. Kweku walked carefully, feeling each step. When he reached Kojo without spilling even a drop, the old man nodded. "Now your spirit is ready." Kweku bowed with newfound understanding. Strength without discipline was chaos. Rhythm without humility was noise. Kojo had taught him more than drumming. He had taught him life. At last, Kojo said the words Kweku had longed to hear. "Go home and strike your drum." Kweku's hands trembled as he approached the baobab tree where the drum sat, untouched for weeks. He knelt before it, feeling both anxious and hopeful. This time, he didn't strike it with pride or desperation. He placed his hand on it gently, whispering a quiet apology, not to the drum, but to the ancestors he had disrespected through arrogance. He breathed deeply, lifted his hands, and gave the drum a soft tap. A deep, warm note filled the air. Kweku gasped, tears filling his eyes. He struck again, another clear, rich tone. The drum had found its voice again because Kweku had found his humility. Villagers nearby stopped to listen, marveling at the restored sound. The drum seemed louder, fuller, more alive than ever before. It was as if the ancestors were pleased. The news spread quickly through Asako. Kweku's drum had spoken again. By sunset, the villagers gathered around him beneath the baobab tree. Elders approached first, followed by children, mothers, hunters, and travelers who happened to be passing through. Everyone wanted to witness the return of the sacred rhythm. Kweku didn't raise his shoulders or boast. Instead, he bowed respectfully to the crowd before he began. The rhythm he played was not the triumphant one from the harvest festival. It was softer, slower, filled with gratitude. Each beat told a story of transformation, how pride had silenced him and humility had restored him. The villagers listened quietly, swaying to the gentle rhythm. When he finished, they erupted into joyous applause, but Kweku did not lift his chin. He simply smiled humbly and thanked them. He knew now that the applause did not define him. Asako's chief, Nana Kwain, invited Kweku to perform at an important ceremony This invitation was not given lightly. It was a symbol of trust and respect. Kweku accepted with humility, promising to play not for glory, but for the spirit of unity. On the day of the ceremony, he wore simple cloth instead of the elaborate attire he once favored. When the time came to play, Kweku closed his eyes and listened to the wind, the murmurs of the crowd, the heartbeat of the village. Then he let the rhythm flow through him. It was as if the ancestors themselves guided his hands. The villagers felt a sense of peace and harmony wash over them. Even the chief smiled, whispering to the elders, "This is the rhythm of a humbled heart." A full year passed, and the next harvest festival approached. Villagers eagerly anticipated seeing Kweku compete again. But on the morning of the festival, Kweku made a surprising decision. He approached the festival council and declined to enter the competition. Instead, he asked to help organize the younger drummers' event. The council was astonished but impressed by his maturity. Kweku spent the festival encouraging young drummers, helping them tune their instruments, and guiding them through their nerves. He clapped the loudest for their performances and celebrated their victories sincerely. Many parents approached him with gratitude, saying he had inspired their children not just with talent but with character. Kweku felt more fulfilled than he ever had when winning. As Kweku continued serving the community, villagers began turning to him for guidance. When disputes arose in the market, he calmly mediated. When drought threatened crops, he helped coordinate water-sharing efforts. His humility made him approachable, and his wisdom, sharpened by experience, made him trustworthy. The chief eventually appointed him head drumkeeper, a role given only to those who showed exceptional character. His responsibilities included teaching young drummers, overseeing ceremonies, and preserving the village's musical traditions. Kweku accepted with deep gratitude, vowing never to let pride silence him again. He had learned that leadership was not about standing above others, but lifting them up. Kweku visited Kojo in the forest, eager to share his progress. The old drummer smiled as Kweku recounted everything. "I knew the drum would speak again," Kojo said, "but I needed you to hear it with more than your ears. I needed you to hear it with your spirit." Kweku knelt respectfully before the elder who had changed his life. Kojo placed his hands on Kweku's shoulders and whispered, "Your journey is only beginning. May your heart always remain open." Before Kweku left, Kojo handed him a small carved pendant shaped like a drum. "Wear this to remember, true rhythm comes from humility." Kweku wore it proudly, not as a symbol of achievement, but as a reminder of the path he had walked. Years passed, and Kweku became one of Asakor's most respected figures. His drumbeat guided weddings, festivals, funerals, harvest ceremonies, and everyday moments of joy. But more importantly, his kindness and humility shaped the hearts of the young. They grew up believing that rhythm was not just a sound, but a way of living, caring for others, walking gently, and honoring the ancestors. One evening during a grand ceremony, the chief asked Kweku to address the village. Kweku stepped forward, drum in hand, and said simply, "A drum speaks only for a humble heart. Without humility, talent is an empty sound." The villagers nodded, knowing his words carried the weight of experience. When he struck his drum, the sound echoed across the plains, deep, strong, full of life. It was no longer just his drum. It was the rhythm of Asakor itself.